Cachamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome to GeoGearHeads, episode 339. We're back today talking about regional organizations. I'm Daryl W4, as usual, with Chris of the Northwest. But we've also got a couple of great guests joining us tonight. So we'll kick it off with one that people have already met on this show, which is GeoMonkey
Exclamation mark.
Yep, I tried to shout it.
I appreciate that. It's important.
You know what? I should just start going bang at the end, and then we're all done. We're good. GeoMonkey bang.
The GeoMonkey.
And from my neck of the woods, someone who you have not met on this show yet is Merlin1392.
Hi, everybody, and I'm sorry I'm late, and I'm the one that did it. It's my fault. Technical difficulties.
This is one of the reasons we do all of these tests and everything ahead of time, is make sure that everything works so that when showtime comes, we're ready to go. And of course, we've done those tests and it didn't work when it's time to go.
The Googles hate us.
Sometimes I think so.
And I'm sorry, just to clarify, it was not Georgia that was causing the slowdown, correct? Georgia was logged in, ready to go, if I'm not mistaken. I just wanted to make sure that part was really clear, just in case some listeners might be confused. So, okay, sorry. I just, maybe that was just me that it wasn't clear for.
Wow. Okay, but GeoMonkey is representing the Georgia Geocachers Association, if you could gather that from the fact that he's plugging Georgia, or, doing his plausible deniability, I guess. And then Merlin is from the Michigan Geocaching Organization, MIGO, which is one that I've been involved with since early on, like 2005 or 6. So yeah, I'm kind of familiar with them.
And that makes you old, Daryl.
Well, I am old, but old as a cacher as well as old as a human, I guess.
Well, there you go. Nothing wrong with that.
So we figured it's about time that we talk about the regional organizations. In way back when, like in the pre-2005 days, one of the big reasons that everyone was setting up these regional organizations was so they had someone who could talk to the land managers. And I suspect that's still the case. GeoMonkey Bang, why don't we let you give us a little bit of an idea of what it was that got Georgia Geocachers Association going?
Well, and I do have to apologize a little bit, because the Georgia Geocache Association goes back way further than even I've been geocaching. So they were started actually in 2001. And actually, my understanding, talking to folks that were around in the early days, was it really grew then out of the need to just create a social organization for cachers to get together, to compare notes, to talk about caches, to see what things made good caches, what things didn't, network, connect with other people. And I think that was the original role. And in my opinion, I think that's probably the most important role of any geocaching group, is that social aspect of it. And then I think as the years went by, to your point, I think it grew into, hey, let's create this resource that can coordinate with land managers, that can help establish rules and let folks and be a resource for rules and things like that. And I know for the GGA, that was something that evolved later on in the organization, not necessarily as an initial focus.
All right. And then Merlin, can you really talk to what it was that got MIGO going? I know it's expanded, as most organizations tend to, but what was it that motivated the founders to get it going?
Well, I think I have to echo what Matt has said, in that I'm not even trying to go with the GeoMonkey stuff. Sorry.
That's fine.
For us, it was back in 2002, and I would have to say it's the same thing. That a group of geocachers got together and wanted to lay out some events, wanted to bring the state and the community together, and yeah, it's really grown very much more than that. Here in Michigan, the Department of Natural Resources wanted to charge geocachers to place a cache in a state park, and they also required you to fill out a permit to put that cache in. So the cachers got together and formed MyGo, and they approached the DNR and said, hey, here's what we represent, here's what we do, here's how we do it. And the DNR said, oh, that would be great. And then we asked, can we fill out the form? And they said yes. And can we pay the permit fee? And they said yes. So we do. So today, one of the benefits of being part of MyGo is that you can place a cache in a state park for free because we've already done the permitting and we've already paid the fee.
Yeah, and a lot of states, organizations have done that. And we are mostly talking about the U.S. because, well, we're from the U.S. today. But there are regional organizations all over the world, and there was one in London that got a lot of attention just before the Olympics over there because they were working actively with the Olympic Committee and with law enforcement in the London area to try to make sure certain caches were disabled or archived, and that everyone was going to be on the same page when it came to the caches over there. So it's a great resource for local cachers to work with local organizations.
Yep.
Can't argue that at all. That was well said, Daryl. Now, so you do more than just working with the Department of Natural Resources or whatever it's called in your state. What are some of the other things that a local regional geocaching organization does? Let's go with GeoMonkey Tiger.
Well, I mean, certainly we can, as a regional organization, you kind of ask two questions in one there. You ask the local and the regional kind of at the same time.
Yeah, that's
and I really think I think that's an interesting way to ask that, because I think there is a difference in roles between the local and the more regional or the statewide organizations. And I think, not to repeat myself too much, but I think that social aspect is probably the biggest thing that the local organizations can do. You get, I know here in the Atlanta area, for instance, we have a lot of local organizations. I mean, we're even segmented where the northeast side of town has an organization, and the east side of town has one, and the south side and the west side. And these organizations are great social structures for people to get out and meet people right smack dab in their community. Make contacts, grab a few caches. Usually, there are exceptions to this, but what I've seen mostly in the pure local organizations, they tend to be more kind of eat and greet type events where people come together, they'll have a meal together. Maybe we're going to go off caching. Maybe there's a new cache or something nearby that they're going to do. And that's kind of the extent of that process. As you move into more regional organization, though, you do have those extra abilities. You have what Tim talked about with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. In Georgia, we've got a little bit different process. We don't have a permit process in the state parks. However, the GGA several years ago, and this was before I was involved, but several years ago, they actually worked. We used to not have any caches in Georgia state parks, and they worked very hard with the GGA. Worked very hard with the state. The Parks Department, I guess. I don't know if that's Department of Natural Resources in Georgia or not. And today, not only do we have hundreds of caches in Georgia state parks, but there's actually a geo trail for that, and you can earn 3 coins finding Georgia park caches, which is really kind of cool. Beyond that, and I know, and Tim may go into this even more, but I think another big role that these organizations have, these regional organizations, is they really can be a repository for information. We can help collect information about different guidelines, and this group or this county has these guidelines in place, and the state parks have these guidelines about the types of caches that can be placed and the things that can be done. And really, there's an opportunity there to create an online one-stop resource, both for cachers in the community that are caching, as well as create a central point of contact where other people in the state may have a question about geocaching, or communities or organizations say, hey, we want to set up a geo trail, or we want to set up some geocaches in our community to bring this. Who can help us with this kind of thing? And that's really where these regional organizations, I think, come in very handy.
Well, that makes a good point. Is one of the people I interviewed way back on the original Cache Maniacs series was telling me one of the ways that they got into the local or the regional caching organization is they had been working with, I want to say it was their DNR, but it doesn't sound right. But whatever their land manager was for their parks, and the warden, I think was what the title was, had said, okay, yes, it's great. We'd love to work with you, but we can't go to the committee as just an informal group. You have to be a chartered organization. You have to have, some kind of legal designation, or we can't technically talk to you and we can't do anything, which is kind of silly. But you think about it, how many just off the wall bizarre people are you going to get to go away if you tell them to do that? UFO Hunters United or something like that might come in and demand to do UFO hunting on the grounds, but if you make them jump through those hoops, you get rid of it and it alleviates some headaches on their part. So by making you jump through the hoops, they make their lives easier. Well, silly, but
it can be, but also too, Daryl, when you're looking at a regional or a statewide organization as opposed to a Facebook group. When I go to the land manager, they're interested in a couple of different things. One is protecting the resource, and two is bringing people to enjoy the resource. So if I'm a Facebook group of 15, 20, 25 people, that doesn't make a significant impact. But if I'm an organization of 200 or 300 people, and oh, by the way, here are the guidelines by which we do and play our game, so that, yes, we're going to be very respectful of the resources that you have. And, oh, we're going to bring 200, 300, 400 people to enjoy your resources. Now, all of a sudden, that makes a different impact to the land manager. And I know that helped us at the state level, specifically when you're going to a state-to-state organization as opposed to just a group of geocachers. So that really does separate the group, and you're right with the structure. We're recognized by the federal government as a 501c, and they have different designations, but 501c3 requires you to do certain things, have certain things in place, and a certain structure to your organization. So if you do that, you've also put in some sweat equity there that the land managers can say, yeah, this is a real organization. We really want to do business with them.
It's someone who's serious. And GSMX2 in the chat brings up a good point, which is an organization that has an official president can sign an agreement. And that's important for these kind of negotiations quite frequently. Someone who's making that commitment. Something else that struck me while you were talking, or earlier, Geo Monkey Tiger Bang. I'm just going to never get tired of that, I guess. Was so many of these regional organizations do have, I think Migo calls them chapters, but like the subgroups that represent the certain regions. And you'll find that especially in the ones that are for larger territories, like Michigan and California and Washington, I think, does it too. Do I remember? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Chris is nodding his head. So a lot of times those local organizations are still part of the regional. And that way they can have all of those benefits. But also, when you go to those local events hosted by the local chapter, it's talking with the people who are actually part of the regional organization, and sometimes bringing those to board meetings or whatnot. So it's a good place to extend those kind of one-on-one communications. Those in person. That's what I was looking for.
In person. Well, and you make a good point, Daryl, because one of the things that I know Matt and I have done recently is we've put together an organization of organizations. So we're reaching out to the different places and trying to understand the Washington State geocachers, the Alaska geocachers, which are statewide, Northern Virginia, Northern Illinois are part of our group. And so like I said, we're an organization of organizations, so we can share things and we can share some benefits. Georgia has their weekly geocaching challenge, which he thought was a great idea. So we stole it. And with Matt's permission, we now do a monthly challenge of the month. So, and a lot of our group has talked about that, and we're sharing ideas that could make it national.
Love that. Yeah. And I'm sure that
a great benefit too is kind of going back to the education and advocacy stuff that the groups perform. It's a good way to get people out there and learning more about the different cache types, as we've talked about on previous shows. Chris, you were going to say something though.
Well, it's helpful that the organizations can also share their wins and their challenges with each other and say, hey, when we went to our local DNR, they presented these restrictions, and here's how we, met them in a way that benefited both of us. So being able to share that kind of information allows the game of geocaching to proceed in a manner that, the local DNRs are saying, hey, you know what, this is going to work for me. So,
well, and that's really been, I've really enjoyed the collaboration that we've done so far. And I think we're just starting to scratch the surface of that collaboration. But it is really interesting, just some of the ideas that different organizations have and the different things they've seen. And just from things as simple as looking at each other's websites, and hey, that's a really cool way that you organize that over there, or this looks really nice over there. And so I think that that's one of those things that we can only grow stronger through that. I mean, nobody's making a profit here. We don't have to worry about stealing ideas and such. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, anything we do that somebody else likes, they should feel free to copy and duplicate and make better, and come back to us with a better version, and then we'll improve our version, and so on and so forth. So I think that's been a really cool part about that interaction. And I like I said, I think we've just scratched the surface. I can't wait to see what the coming months will bring on that.
Yeah, so if there is anybody from any regional statewide organizations listening to this podcast, we're not ready to go international yet. We're still struggling to go nationally, but if there's any national groups, get a hold of us. We'd love to have you on board.
Yeah, I would imagine that brings a whole nother challenge, but a whole nother set of benefits when you start getting international with the organizations. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that occurred to me was the cool merchandise that I used to get from Migo at the events. This is pre-mega events. So at this point, I think a lot of that local stuff you get it from the mega events, and there's just more merchants doing it anyway. But that was always one of the things I enjoyed about going to the Migo events, was grabbing a new coin or a new t-shirt or something like that. That's something that's a Michigan local thing, which at the time was the only way to get it. But that was in those days, and I imagine it still is to some extent, a large source of income for the groups, and that's how they were making their money. So by making these purchases, you're also supporting the group that's supporting you as a cashier.
Exactly. We just I'm
Is that
holding
your
it
new
up
coin?
here. Yeah, I'm just holding it up. This is our new 2018 coin that we've got. We do a design contest each year where we let our members submit different designs, and then people vote for the one they like the best. And yeah, and that's a big part of how we finance our operations throughout the year. So.
Nice.
Well, and only because I told her I would do it. I'll see if I can get that one up there good enough. That's Wisconsin's. I got a lot of glare in it, but Wisconsin has done a really nice coin for the year. Now, MyGo hasn't done that. I'm trying to get that going again, get it restarted. At our winter social event is where we do a lot of our major fundraising for the year. But once again, a benefit of an organization is that because we do have 200 or 300 members, a smaller supporting cost allows us to take those funds and spread them out a lot longer across a lot of different kind of events and across the state.
Well, and that's something we probably should have mentioned right up off the front here, is that you'll have to check with your local regional organization to see if there are dues. But most of the geocaching organizations that I've run into don't have dues for joining. They might have some kind of fee for like higher level operations, memberships. But for your basic, just get in there and start working on stuff, it's almost always a free thing. So there's no cost to you as a geocacher to at least sign up and start getting the notices and finding out more about what's going on, and maybe even getting involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Georgia, we don't.
Yeah, there was
have...
sorry, man.
No, go ahead, Tim.
Oh, I was gonna say I just recently got involved with MyGo. There was a email that got sent out that said, "Hey, we're looking for some new blood on our executive committee," and I was kind of silly and volunteer. So now I'm learning all about this stuff. But yeah, our membership is free, and then we hope that members will move into a supporting role. I know some of the other state organizations, for a supporting role, they give you a coin or they give you some merchandise that is a reason to help support them, and we're looking at that as well. So again, another part of the national sharing. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just going to say, in Georgia, we don't have any official paid levels at all. So everything is completely voluntary. If you attend one event, you're an official GGA member, and then we support ourselves entirely through voluntary purchases. We sell a couple of things throughout the year. We do coins, we do a calendar contest, and we do some path tags usually around the Going Caching Mega that takes place here in Georgia. So that funds us, and we have various raffles and things we do as well throughout the year just to raise money. But that's exclusively us.
Sure. Yeah. And every organization is totally different. So there might be someone doing exactly the stuff that you're doing. There might not be, but it's something that you have to find out from your local organization. And Keepers of the Cash Flow in the chat is saying that Alberta has GEAA, Search, Cachers, CAG, and WAC, but no province-wide organization. And only the GEAA has optional paid memberships. So that's one that there's no province-wide one. It's just your local groups. And that kind of reminded me of one of the ones out in New England got started actually doing one of those like road rally kind of things every year. So their organization got started from that and just ballooned from an event into a full-fledged organization. So there's some of those out there too that got started because they wanted the support for an event and then turned into a full organization. Why don't we get into this email though from Ed302V8? And Chris, why don't I have you read that?
I will. From Ed302V8. Yes, the Ford V8 engine, he says. We have a local caching group for our county. It's not a formal organization, no dues or officers, but we have a Facebook page and we do a monthly get-together over dinner at a restaurant. Attendance is usually 15 to 30 people, occasionally more, and the faces change a little as the location moves around the county. Other than the monthly dinner, and a once or twice a year CETO for our section of adopted highway, the organization does not really do anything else. Yes, groups of friends get together to go caching, but there are no other official activities. I'm looking for ideas for the group to get more active, especially outreach to those who don't know about geocaching.
Yeah, that's one of the great things that these organizations do is the education and outreach stuff, which does kind of get back into the land managers, because I know a lot of the time that Migo is called on to do the booths, the educational booths at various state parks and local parks. It's because of those relationships that they've already built. But do you guys have any tips on how you can get in with those parks to do that outreach stuff? Tim, I know you're new, but I kind of threw Migo in there right off the bat, so we'll make you go first.
Yeah, thanks, Daryl. Well, and we actually have been contacted. Once you have an organization in your state that is well known and generates the communications to the state level, actually the land managers start seeking us out, and they say, we're doing this event. I know there's a fish free day, a sportsman outdoor day in Lansing coming up in July, and they've asked us to be there. And so we do have a marketing presence, so we can tell people about it. We have brochures, and we tell people about it and how the organization works. We get contacted by libraries, kind of community groups that say, hey, we would like to learn more about geocaching. Can you guys help with that? And any geocacher that's been involved for a number of years can say, yeah, I can tell people about geocaching. But what we do is we make sure that the materials are consistent across a lot of different things. So you might say, well, how do I earth cache? What's an earth cache all about? Well, we've got a material that, again, consistent look and feel, and we can present that whether we're on the east side of the state or on the west side of the state or in the Upper Peninsula. We can use that really anywhere.
Well, and at one point, I don't know if you guys still have them, but there were a series of GPSRs that were available to the people who were teaching the 101 classes at these events. So they'd have a few that they could pass out, and that way it's all the same model, and they can do the rundown and train people on how to geocache with that same unit, and then no one has to go out and buy anything to learn to geocache. And I know so many cachers who had done one of those events who came to a later event and said, yeah, this is how I got started, and I ran out and bought that same GPS because that's what I learned on at the event.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out, because I have a geocaching 101 in November that I'm doing, so I have to find if I can get those. Thanks, Daryl.
They were E-Trex units way back in the day. Mm-hmm. I want to say they were yellows, to be honest, but I don't think that the yellows would actually fly anymore as something that you could teach on, because it is so rudimentary to what most people expect. But
probably not. I'll just have everybody use their smartphone.
Yeah. Well, and that's really the way to go, is have people use what they want to use. The trouble is you have to get something in there to train them on, and with the official app, it can only be the official caches.
Right.
But in any case, and then you have multiple apps that you'd have to train people on. So it's always nice to have that one baseline. Here's how to do it, and go from there. All right, Geo Monkey Tiger Bang. How about you? Any thoughts on it?
Just two thoughts. I mean, one, obviously, within your county, more than likely you have a county park system that does recreational things, and certainly reaching out to them and making the offer to say, hey, we're an organization here. We'd love to share what we do. I know in my county here, they do various outdoor days all the time that they've got, and we've done some programs before in various areas, and that can certainly be there. But the other thing, though, I would say too is and maybe it's just the way I heard it, but don't discount at all just the social organization. If you've got 15 to 30 people showing up every month, I mean, that's a nice little local organization, especially as things change. And I think, me personally, I give a lot of credit to the local organizations, because I don't feel, had I not gotten involved and had I not met some of my friends and cashers and learned things in these local meetings, even if they were just at a dinner meeting and things like that, I would not have progressed in the game the way that I had today. I mean, it is pure and simple. And I think that's such a huge factor. I see so many, I saw a log not too long ago, and it was a log from somebody, and it said, you know, something like, "This is the most fun ever. I'm going to love this game." And I looked up their profile, and they quit after 3 caches, right? And I always wonder when I see that, like, why are people excited for this and then quit after 3 caches? And I really think part of it is the lack of network that people have, that they don't have any friends. They don't know where to go with questions. They don't, know anybody that's crazy enough that wants to go out with them for a day to go cash into a local park or something like that. So I think that's just a huge role that shouldn't be downplayed in any way, shape, or form. And it sounds like they've got a great county organization going on. I love what I heard about moving around the county and doing different things, and that's kind of exactly the model some of our local organizations do here as well. Just moving around and having different people host the events in different places and different, we've got an organization here. We've got a couple, one always meets the 3rd Tuesday of the month. One always meets the 3rd Thursday of the month. And it just moves all around and up and down. And, some people make some events and some, others make other events, and we get a new person here or there all the time. And it's always great to see those folks. So, and even encouraging the existing people, hey, bring somebody with you that hasn't been to one of our meetings before. And that's a great way to help encourage folks as well.
I think the person who has 3 cache finds, they were all lamppost hides and they were done with the game.
Very, very possible.
They found the 3 lampposts, no problem, but the guardrail just threw them completely and they had to leave.
Much, yeah.
Well, that's kind of the whole thought behind the challenge caches, and the cache has to be at the finals because people were getting frustrated with those. Mm-hmm. But Bounce is saying that a good way to get into those outreach kind of things is contacting groups that have summer camps for kids. I would say not even for kids, because I know there's some for adults that are looking for similar kind of programs to do the training and geocaching 101s. He's set up some gadget cache puzzles around property so that kids can find, and the parks promotes the geocaching. And he also says, take samples if you can of what you can do for them. You're not going to do your full presentation, but give them some idea of what they're signing up for when you're doing it.
Yeah, and if they can get some of those bounce puzzle boxes that he takes around to events, he takes those in, people are going to go, yeah, we want these. Come, bring all you have. So he does a fabulous job. GSM times 2 says, actually, an LPC is a hard one to find the first time. And it is. I had no idea.
Oh, the first one's real hard.
Yeah, exactly.
On a side note, one of the things I used to do was anyone who had like less than 10 finds who logged one of my caches, I'd really try to reach out to them and, give them some encouragement and let them know that, I'm always here to help them if they need a hand with something, and to invite them to local events. Do you guys do the same kind of stuff? And if so, any methods that you can recommend? Because I think that is a great way to get people hooked on the game.
I know I have a few hides of my own that sometimes people find, and I've got more. I don't have a lot of traditionals that I've hidden, so I probably tend not to get as many beginners, just because I think beginners don't do multis and mysteries and such. But I occasionally get some hits on my caches. But I also I think I'm the Georgia record holder for having the most number of caches on their watch list, so I get an obscene number of notifications every day. And I will often see people kind of do things in a log that perhaps, or they're logging a DNF because they couldn't find it or something like that. And I've had some nice success reaching out to people and just saying, hey, I see you're a relatively new cacher. If you've got questions, I know this game is tough sometimes at the beginning, and I had a lot of questions when I started, and I'm more than happy to help you. And by the way, here's a couple events that are coming up. You should come out and meet your local cachers, and here's the local events here, and here's the statewide event, and hey, feel free to reach out to me, and if you've got questions, comments, concerns, etc.
Yeah, I've only done a little bit of that because my current caching style is I'm also a certified scuba diver, and so I've got 10 cache hides total. 8 of them are 25 feet below the surface of the water or deeper. The other 3, I've really embraced West Virginia Tim, and they are all evil gadget caches. So really hard. And usually I'll get a log from someone that says, I couldn't get it open. Can you give me any hints? And so then I'll reach out to them and do the same kind of thing. But I don't get that too many because they're like a 3, 4, 4 or 5s because they're on the water and in the river. So I haven't done a lot of that personally.
Yeah, you're a tough hider for new.
Yeah, not a new.
You're not newbie friendly.
Sorry.
Well, All Things Harbor in the chat says that if they have a new cacher who posts a DNF for one of their hides, then they send exact instructions and encourage a second try. Which
that's a good idea.
I've done that too, especially on the ones that are a little bit out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially when it's something that the typical geocacher would like walk right up to, like a lamp skirt hide.
Mm-hmm.
It's really challenging that first time. Give them the information, and they'll probably never ask for it again because I was like, "Oh, light bulb! I'm never forgetting it."
And I think that's where organizations, whether it's your local organization or your state organization or your regional, I think that's where we have the biggest potential, because there's a whole group of people that are these newer, infrequent cachers, and the question is, how do you reach those folks, right? Because they're not seasoned enough to understand about events necessarily, and I certainly don't want to put anybody down, so please don't take it as I'm saying they're dumb or anything like that. That is not my intent whatsoever. But they're either new enough to the game that they maybe don't understand the concept of an event, or understand that it's open for everybody, or or just plain intimidated. It took me 4 or 5 months of caching before I worked up the courage to go to my first event. And even then, I drug my poor buddy along with me, who I'd been caching with, and made him go with, because I was scared to death. And it took a lot just to get me to go to that first meeting. And some of the people there were so friendly that it really just ignited that whole piece. So I think that's one of the real potentials that I know our organization, and one of the things I would love for us to do is improve that outreach and make it better. And I've even thought, and I can't quite figure out how to put this together, and maybe somebody will have some great ideas, but I've often thought it would be really cool to set up almost like a cache mentor type program, where if you could reach people, you could assign them a quote cache mentor, and not that mentor would have to go out caching with them or do anything extensive, but hey, my name's Geo Monkey Tiger. I've been assigned to you as your mentor. If you have any questions at all, let me know. I'm happy to answer them. If you've got a question about how to log something, about what's a virtual cache, what's a multi-cache, how do I use the app, I'm more than happy to do that. And as part of the deal, I'll check in with you every couple of weeks and see if you've logged any finds, and maybe send an encouraging note or something like that. And I think there would be a cool potential to do something like that. I haven't quite physically figured out the logistics of it, but I would love to see the organization evolve into that and really make that bridge, because I think that that there are so many people that I see that log 10 fines and quit. And I would just love to know, I'm sure somebody somewhere has the statistic about how many caches people find before they, they quit on average or whatever it is. And I just think it's such a shame because it could be so much, we all know, I mean, obviously we're pretty hardcore at this and we're really into it, but and I'm sure some people just try it out and say, you know what, this isn't my thing. I got 4 ticks today and I had to crawl through a culvert and, I have no desire to do this. But I'm sure a lot of people just don't get quite either the education or the social experience or whatever it is that would really push them on and move forward. So
I think that's a great thing to do, and you explained it well. And it could be weather. They started out in the summer and it was a lot of fun. Now it's the fall and winter, and it's like, I don't want to go do that. So I mean, it could just be, hey, let's try an event. Let's go try this, and having a mentor or somebody, that says, hey, you know what? I know that one wasn't fun. Come on, let's go do this one. Or have you thought about? It wasn't too long ago, I went to an event and a new cacher was there. In fact, the cacher didn't understand it was an event. They went to the coordinates looking for a cache. And they're like, well, what are all these people? And like, hey, this is good to see you here. This is an event. Oh, is that what this is? Okay, I couldn't figure it out. So, things like that do happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's a new one that I haven't actually come across. The odds of actually getting to the event at the right time are pretty staggering.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Well, it said the cache was going to be hidden between 6:30 and 8. So
you might be right that they actually read
right there in the cache description.
And just didn't understand. If you don't understand what an event is and you just assume geocaching is all about finding the Tupperware in the woods, then an event is a pretty foreign concept, I guess. And you're like, okay, it's going to be there from, got it. It's a moving cache.
Well, and I mean, if you're using the smartphone, and let's admit it, that's where all the new cachers are coming from. It's just a different colored blip on the screen. It doesn't, does that mean anything different? Oh, this one's red. Why? The other ones I found were green. Okay.
Yeah, or whatever the color is in the app that you're using. Yeah. And in some of the apps, like the official one, you just get this tiny little blurb that's like an abstract of the first few lines. Mm-hmm. All right, we are getting a little long here, but I think one of the interesting notes is the different types of organizations, at least in the US, this probably isn't going to apply anywhere else, but someone had dropped in the show notes the 501c3 versus 501c7, which I got into for a totally different reason, and it still confuses me.
Yeah, I dropped that in there only because it kind of helps distinguish. I mean, we're talking about it nationally, the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c7. And both of them are tax-exempt organizations, but it kind of depends on what you're doing for the members. And I'm going to get in trouble now because I forget which one was which, but the 501c3, I believe, is where you're tax exempt to the members. The members can get a tax write-off for donating to your organization. Correct. And it has to be primarily for educational purposes. The 501c7 is a tax exempt organization, but the members still have to pay taxes and stuff on everything that they do. And it is more for recreation and entertainment purposes. So it depends on why your organization was developed. And I know, again, across the United States, anyway, it's probably 50-50 who went 501c3 versus who went 501c7.
Yeah, well, and I seem to remember that the C3s are a little bit more complex in the structure and in the tax filings than the C7s. So a lot of them will opt to go for the C7s because it's just easy comparatively.
You don't need an accountant to help you with that. Yeah.
Right. So the C3s were designed for religious, charitable guys. The scientific, literary is also listed in there. educational, of course, and testing for public safety. I thought that one was interesting.
Yeah.
Like UL Labs.
Kind of like, except they're a for-profit organization, I think.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah. Who else tests for public safety that doesn't make a profit? Why would you do that? Anyway. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate both of your organizations, the Georgia Geocaching Association and the Michigan Geocaching Organization. So,
and we'll have links in the show notes for each of those. But remember, everyone, both of these guys are working hard on those challenges. Tim, why don't you give us a clue as to what's going to happen? Well, it's going to wrap up here in a couple of days, but what's happening for the challenge right now for June?
Well, for the June challenge, we did the same kind of cache. So we have 3 different levels: bronze, silver, and gold. And for traditional caches, find so many, you qualify for the bronze level. If you want to get silver or gold, you have to find some of the more advanced caches, if you will, a different non-traditional cache. And it ties in pretty well with the hidden creatures, which we didn't talk about, because the more you find, the more points you get. And I was going to try to send it out today, but I'll tease you with July. July's about, there's this national holiday that we have lots of shooting rockets and shooting stars. There might be something associated with that for July.
Very interesting, including a flash mob event out here by me. All right, Geo Monkey Tiger Bang, what can you tell us about next week's challenge, or am I still too early?
Well, you're a little on the early side. We've just started teasing our challenges a little bit more. Next week's challenge, one of the things we like to do is we name all of our challenges after songs. So the song for next week is called Chasing the Benchmark. So I'll give you one guess what that's going to have to do with next week.
I'm thinking it's Where I Go based.
You know what? That is an excellent guess. That is very good. So, actually, yes, I will say this. We're going to do something a little bit unusual next week, because one of our main goals with our challenges was we want to get folks getting out and trying new things. And benchmarks are something that a lot of people don't participate in at all. Either they don't know how, they don't understand them, etc. So we're going to do quite a bit of benchmark education in the next few days, in the next week, and we're going to challenge some folks to get out and find a couple of benchmarks next week. The good news is we're not going to make it super hard for folks, since it's something a little bit off the radar for them.
Took me forever to sign the log on the first benchmark.
I had a chisel and a hammer, and some cop kept yelling at me about defacing public property. Yeah, it's awful.
It's a game. Don't worry. I'm fine.
See, at my first benchmarks, I couldn't find because they were under the road.
Yeah.
They literally had paved over them. And it was like, okay, this is just stupid. I'm done with this. It took me a while to appreciate it. Well, thanks again, guys.
Some people will enjoy it and some people won't as much. But we want folks to try something maybe a little bit different than what's in their comfort zone. So.
Yeah, well, it gets into a whole nother aspect if you're into it, because like those railroad benchmarks are not where they're supposed to be. So it takes a lot of searching to find them.
Yep.
Yeah, I've searched longer for a benchmark than I have for some geocaches.
Yeah, they shouldn't be that hard, but things happen. All right, thanks again, guys. It's been great, and we hope to have you on again. But we've got 4 more weeks of great shows lined up. Actually, more than that, but we've got 4 weeks that we're willing to share with you at this point. So July 5th is going to be episode 340 on conversions. And that's going to be with GSMX to learn about what he does and get some tips about doing Muggle conversions. Muggle to geocacher. We like this. Then on the 12th is going to be 341 Friendships 1 with Cowboy Bebop and Lobotomy, talking about this is really kind of cool, because these 2 guys who are geocachers connected as friends through geocaching and then went and started a podcast, but not about geocaching. So you'll hear a lot more about that on the 12th. Then on the 19th, we're back with Cache Torno. I'm not sure that's how it's pronounced, but
Sure.
Yeah, I always call it cachetur.no.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stick with that. And that's going to be our Reagan and Plato Act giving us some tips and tricks for using that site. Then the 26th is our next randomized show. So send in all of your topics that you want us to follow up on, any kind of cool articles. We're going to try to squeeze as much of it as we can into that one, but this is a long time for us between randomized shows. So, you know, we'll get what we can in there, but send them in because we really love talking about your topics.
But until next week, make sure you check out the Cachamaniacs website at cachamaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes from this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners. So leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads@cachamaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cachamaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachamaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2018 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.